My name's Anne. I got married 6 months ago when I was 26. My husband John is 30 and works in an office. So this story is about when John decided without asking me to let his younger sister, Molly, stay with us in our new house. We spent $45,000 on this house for just the two of us. We've been planning the house and furniture since we got engaged. When John's stuff arrived, there was so much of it. I was surprised and asked if it would all fit in his space. Then John casually dropped the bomb that Molly was moving in too. I was shocked. Why? I asked. We just got married. But John didn't see the problem. He said Molly's family too, so it's fine. She said she wanted to live in the new house. I objected without any discussion, but John just kept unpacking, ignoring me. Then he suddenly got angry, yelling, "If you don't like it, you can leave." I've already decided Molly's staying, so stop complaining. I wasn't convinced and threatened to call my brother. Scared of my brother's reaction, John changed his mind quickly. Wait, don't call him. Molly won't stay long. She just needs a place until she finds a job and a house. Can you understand? I reluctantly agreed. Then I suggested, can Molly stay in the guest room? John hesitated and said, yeah, though he didn't seem sure. I moved Molly's things into the guest room. After a busy day of unpacking, we were almost done. We were having a toast to celebrate when the doorbell rang. It was late, so I wanted to ignore it, but John answered it quickly. I was surprised because I was ready for bed. John called me, and Molly's here. Irritated, I came back to the living room. Welcome, Molly. Why are you here so late? I asked, trying to hide my annoyance. Molly replied, can't I come whenever I want? Now show me my room, big bro, she said, and John led her to the guest room. Soon Molly complained, this isn't it. John said, it's a bigger room, isn't that better? She searched for another room, saying, upstairs, right? This is my room, big bro. I felt uneasy, and when I went upstairs, Molly was claiming my workroom as hers. I couldn't help but raise my voice. This is my workroom, so it can't be your room, I insisted. John suggested, why not? Let's make this Molly's room, but I kept saying no. Then I pointed to the room next to it, intended to be John's hobby room, but he panicked. Not that room. I've been looking forward to using it. I chose the wallpaper and everything. No way, I replied. The only option left was the featured children's room, currently a guest room. Molly, still unhappy, snapped, and you're quite insolent, aren't you? Not listening to the head of the household. Quite cheeky for a freeloader who depends on him for meals. I was too tired to argue back, thinking, who's the real freeloader here? As I headed back to the living room, I heard Molly asking, hey, big bro, do we have anything to eat? I'm hungry. I ignored her and continued celebrating alone in the living room. They were arguing, but I didn't pay much attention until John came over and accused me, saying, you're always going against me and acting all high and mighty. He grabbed the wine bottle and drank it all, shouting, if you won't listen to me, then leave. I'm the head of this household, don't underestimate me. Then he left with Molly. Despite the late hour, I decided to call my brother and tell him about Molly. He answered right away, sounding angry. I asked if he was mad and interrupted him during an argument with his wife. He'd apologized, but it seemed their relationship was in trouble. Worried, I offered to come over, but he wanted to be alone. I told him about Molly moving in and the issues with John and her. He was concerned about how I was being treated, but I brushed it off, saying I wouldn't be anyone's servant. We then talked about his problems with his wife, and I was shocked to learn she was having an affair with men from a dating site. He found out because she accidentally sent him a message meant for her lover. John had suspected her infidelity for a while, and once he got proof, he took her phone and sent her back to her parents' house. He plans to visit them tomorrow for a discussion. We ended the call acknowledging that both of us were in tough situations and agreed to catch up again soon. While I was finishing up unpacking, I waited for John and Molly to come back home. They returned late, happily tipsy. As I continued organizing, they approached me and Molly came up with an idea. Let's turn our bedroom into Molly's room. We can each sleep in our own workrooms. What do you think? It's a good idea, right? Just make sure Ollie's room is cleared out by tomorrow, she said. I wanted to clarify something and ask them, how much will Molly contribute to groceries and household supplies each month? And since she doesn't plan on staying forever, how long does she intend to stay? My husband started to panic at my questions. What? You want money from unemployed Molly? I'll cover it with my salary, so there's no issue, right? Molly chimed in. As for how long I'll stay, until I'm satisfied. My mom's cooking is too old-fashioned for me and I don't like. She's always nagging me to do laundry and cleaning at home. But here, I can do whatever I want without spending a dime. It's the best. If you don't like it, Anne, why don't we move out? I retorted, then let's split the household expenses. I'll work to cover my share. Feel free to use your salary for yourself and Molly, I told them. They seemed pleased with this, although I added, you'll need to take care of your own chores. They didn't seem to be listening, so I left a note to make it clear. The next day, I visited my brother's workplace because I was worried about him. He's the president of a construction company, taking over after our father passed away last year. When I got there, he was surprised to see me. He asked what's up, and I explained what happened the night before, asking if he could hire me at his company. He agreed, saying our secretary is leaving due to her husband's relocation. Then he told me about his situation. I was shocked to hear that his wife was pregnant, but it was clear the child wasn't his. The messages on the phone John had taken from his child revealed conversations, photos, and videos with her lover. They showed that the man was trying to avoid responsibility after learning about the pregnancy. When I asked my brother if he planned to divorce his wife, he said, it's tough on the kids, but divorce seems like the only solution. So I recommended involving a lawyer for a proper discussion. Then I went home. In my room, I couldn't stop thinking about the texts and pictures my brother showed me of his wife's affair. It was hard to shake them off. The sister-in-law I knew was loving and family-oriented, and I admired her for it. But she had betrayed my brother. It felt like losing a close friend, and tears filled my eyes. Despite this, Molly kept knocking on my door, asking for food, but I was too overwhelmed to argue, so I left her be. Then my husband called, even though he should have been at work. I didn't pick up because I knew what he wanted to discuss, and I wasn't in the mood to talk to anyone. Shortly after, I received a text from my brother, asking if I could go with him to see a lawyer the next day. I sent back an okay sticker. I must have dozed off. My husband's yelling woke me up. You didn't even make food for Molly, and you're sleeping? What's up with that? He shouted. I silently handed him a note and pointed to it for him to read. He then said to Molly, let's let her rest today. She seems off. We can talk to her tomorrow, once she's feeling better. I'm not sick. I'm just tired of you guys arguing, I mumbled before falling back asleep. The next morning, without waking my husband, I went to my brother's place. He hadn't slept at all, and his eyes were red. I made breakfast for the kids and drove them to kindergarten. They mentioned, Mommy and Daddy fought and Mommy left. Mommy was the bad one. She left us alone at home, and we cried. Daddy got mad. They seemed to think it might be better without their mom since she got angry easily. I reassured them, if you feel lonely, call Auntie, okay? They cheered up, saying they might get lonely today. They didn't seem too sad about their mom not being there. After dropping the kids off, I went to the lawyer's office with my brother. The lawyer informed us that there was substantial evidence from pictures, videos, messages, and recorded conversations on my sister-in-law's phone. My brother's main aim was to divorce while retaining parental rights. After he shared his story, I got some advice about my own situation with my husband before my brother dropped me off at home. He was planning to gather the family and break the news about the divorce. If anything happens, don't hesitate to call. We'll all be there for you, he said somewhat ominously before leaving. When I walked into the living room, the house was a mess. It seemed like they had attempted to make breakfast, with greasy surfaces in the kitchen and dishes left on the table. I sighed at the sight. As I debated whether to clean up, Molly appeared. Where did you go without making breakfast? John didn't eat anything and left for work. Isn't it your duty as a wife to take care of household chores? She accused me. I retorted, I'm not your maid. Weren't you taught to clean up after yourself since you were a child? Ignoring her insistence that you're the wife, I walked away and headed to my room. When I returned to my room, I found that Molly's belongings had taken over. Confused, I asked her, did you go into my room? Your stuff is in there. What's going on? She replied, I've always loved your room. It suits my neat and cute style perfectly, don't you think? I moved your things into the guest room. Furious, I hurried to the guest room. My computer and belongings were scattered haphazardly. I felt a surge of anger. It was too much to bear. I felt an intense desire for revenge. I'll never forgive her, I vowed. I decided to wait for my husband John to come home, show him the mess, and ask, "Do you still want to live here with Molly?" I prepared myself for any possible outcome. John arrived home earlier than usual, seemingly after a call from Molly. I heard his heavy footsteps approaching the guest room. As I watched him head straight for the guest room, I was sure he already knew about Molly taking over my room and wouldn't support me. When he opened the door and entered looking furious, Molly was right beside him, wearing a smug smile. "You went against Molly. You're the one at fault here, neglecting to make breakfast. Aren't you my wife? Shouldn't you take care of me? Molly is your sister-in-law. You should look after her and tolerate her." I thought bitterly, so this was how it was going to be. In that moment, any love I had for my husband vanished. He didn't defend me, didn't acknowledge Molly's wrongdoing, or suggest she leave or help with chores, or giving my room back. I told him if you're letting Molly stay, I'll invite my brother over. He's never seen our house. Maybe I should call him now. Despite his usual fear of my brother around Molly, John acted boldly. "Are you sure about that? If you bring him here, I'll kick you out," he threatened confidently. I stood my ground. "Go ahead, try to kick me out. I'll call my mother, brother, and his wife, and let them see the house," I declared. Expecting me to beg or cry at his threat, John snapped back, "Don't you dare call your family. If you're not happy, then leave." Molly joined in, asserting, "This is our home with John. You have no right to bring anyone here. Even if they come, we'll just show them the door." Ignoring their warnings, I grabbed my phone and stated, "I'm calling my brother." Turning to John and Molly, I suggested, "Maybe it's best if we all live separately. We can have our own space and enjoy ourselves without any worries." Molly seemed thrilled at the idea of me leaving, with John agreeing. "That does sound like fun. Perhaps it's time for a divorce." Frustrated, I decided to call my family over. Despite John and Molly's excitement about me leaving, I warned, "You'll regret this decision. I'm calling my family now." I dialed my brother and urged my family to come over as soon as possible. My brother's response was swift and reassuring. "We've been expecting your call. We're already on our way." His foresight touched me deeply. Within about 30 minutes, my family arrived. Molly, who had threatened to kick them out earlier, turned pale at the sight of my brother. "Molly, I thought you were going to show my family the door," I remarked. She could only shake her head in response. Seeing her and John's fear after facing my imposing brother was quite satisfying. Both my brothers have been practicing judo since childhood, and their presence is quite intimidating. Standing over 6 feet tall with a buzz cut, my elder brother used to compete nationally until a knee injury in college. Now, he coaches at a local boys' club. My younger brother is just as formidable, also practicing judo and resembling his older sibling closely. Despite being quite memorable, Molly seemed to have forgotten encountering them at the wedding. "We're getting kicked out by who? Aren't you the ones leaving?" My elder brother laughed, prompting Molly to gather her courage and demand, "My brother is divorcing his useless wife now. Please leave." In response, my younger brother retorted, "You're the ones leaving, right? This is Anne's house, built with her share of our father's inheritance and in her name." Meanwhile, my mother busied herself in the kitchen, tidying up and commenting, "What a mess." She then called out, "Let's not waste time. Get to the point." So my brothers complied, turning to me and instructing, "Another person is coming. Let them in when they arrive," before gesturing for John and Molly to sit down. "We have 2 matters to discuss today. First, we need you to leave," my elder brother told them. When Molly asked if the house belonged to me, John hesitated, saying I was involved in the interior design discussions with the contractors, so I thought it was mine, but maybe not. "But I'm the head of the household, right?" John protested, seemingly under the impression that he owned the house by virtue of being the head of the household, without considering its source of funding. Being the head of the household and being the owner of the house are 2 different things, someone pointed out, leaving John speechless. However, Molly remained defiant, citing residency rights. "I won't leave. I have the right to stay," she declared, glaring at me. "Residency rights don't apply here since you're not paying rent," someone countered, leading John to resist further. "But I'm married to Anne. I can't leave. We can't separate," he insisted. At that moment, the doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of the guests my brothers had mentioned. When I opened the door, my sister-in-law, my elder brother's wife, stood there in tears. Before letting her in, I asked my brother how we should handle their presence. My mother offered to take care of their child upstairs. After settling my mother and welcoming my sister-in-law inside, John was shocked to see her. "How did you find out where we live?" he stammered, acting suspiciously. My elder brother intervened, reminding John of their second matter to discuss. John's face drained of color. "What? It seemed he was unaware of her identity as my brother's wife. Realizing his mistake, he attempted to flee but was frozen in place. "Seems like my wife is pregnant with your child. Did you two plan this?" my brother accused, slamming evidence of the affair onto the table. "Well, what's your next move?" "For me, it's divorce, nothing less," he declared. Fearing the consequences, Molly attempted to retreat upstairs. My younger brother wasted no time in instructing Molly. "We've got a truck loaded with boxes. Start packing your things right now." He then left to fetch the boxes himself. Molly, taken aback, asked, "Am I leaving today?" Upon receiving a stern glare from my brother, she seemed to relent. Meanwhile, my elder brother turned to his wife, commanding, "My wife and John can sort this out first. Sign the divorce papers." He handed her the papers and a pen. Although she hesitated upon seeing that custody was assigned to him instead of her, he dismissed her concerns, stating, "That's what the kids want. Your opinion doesn't matter." With tears in her eyes, she signed the papers. Moved by the scene, I saw the tears welling up in my brother's eyes, realizing the emotional toll it had taken on him. Then it was my turn to decide. "Anne, what are you going to do?" my brother asked. Without hesitation, I declared, "I choose divorce too. I want him out of my house as soon as possible." My husband dropped to his knees, begging for forgiveness. "Please, I don't want a divorce. It might not even be my child," he pleaded. However, when my brother revealed that he had undergone surgery to prevent further children, my husband was left speechless. My brother handed me blank divorce papers. "If you want him out right away, why don't you have him sign?" he suggested. Reluctantly, I instructed my husband to sign, which he did. I then presented him with 2 pledge documents prepared by my lawyer. One was for him and the other for Molly, pledging to pay for the damages they caused to the house, totaling roughly $30,000. Additionally, the documents stated that they were never to enter my house again in the future. John glanced at my brother and me, perhaps intending to voice a complaint, but a stern glare from my brother silenced him, and he reluctantly signed the pledge document. His shoulders slumped as he made a feeble attempt to head upstairs to gather his belongings for the move. However, my brother intervened, producing a marriage license. "I got this for you too," he announced, handing it to his wife. Without hesitation, she signed it and urged John to do the same. "You've made a mess of my life, and you can't escape responsibility," she declared with a determined look. John, overwhelmed and tearful, complied, muttering, "Just do whatever you want." Finally, my brother demanded, "You have nothing to say unless I ask, right? Don't you owe me an apology?" John, almost prostrating himself, apologized profusely to my brother. With that settled, we hurriedly packed John's and Molly's belongings into boxes and loaded them onto the awaiting truck, destined for their parents' house. And just like that, my brief married life came to an end. As I contemplated living alone in the now empty house, my mother offered to sell her own house and move in with my younger brother, while my elder brother planned to do the same with his 3 children. It seemed that we were all embarking on a new chapter, albeit in different configurations. My mother and brother have decided to purchase the house from me using the proceeds from selling their own homes. They keep suggesting, "Why not build a new house when we get married again?" But I insist, I'm content with an apartment. We fulfilled the kids' dream of owning a dog, bringing laughter and joy into our lives despite the lingering memories of this house. Meanwhile, my ex-husband reportedly remarried my former sister-in-law 6 months later and now resides with her at his parents' house. He's working tirelessly to pay for the damages to the house, while Molly is treating her new sister-in-law like a maid, causing her to lose her mental stability. Unable to bear seeing her daughter in such a state, Molly's mother kicked her out of the house. Seeking refuge, Molly turned to my ex-husband for help, only to be met with blame. He coldly remarked, "If you hadn't moved in, we'd still be living in that mansion." Left isolated and without support, Molly found herself alone in her troubles.